Welcome to an emergency edition of the Cheryl Reeve Show. Cheryl is on her way to Chicago. We're catching her at the airport. We wanted to do a show tonight because of so much happening in the world of the WNBA and with the Minnesota Lynx right now. I'm Jim Suhan. This is our network, TalkNorth.com, local podcast network. This is, of course, your women's basketball and all kinds of other stuff show with the now the winningest female WNBA coach of all time. What does that mean to you, Cheryl?
Absolutely nothing. I don't, I'm not a big fan of distinctions.
I wondered about that.
So yeah, that doesn't mean anything. I get it, as our sport grows and as we want more women to coach, from that standpoint, I get, why people would say that. And if that encourages someone else to coach, if that, if it shines a light a little bit on a female coach, that's great. But in terms of, even if it wasn't, the wins and losses don't matter to me. It's just the joy I get from being around this team. And then obviously, the fun thing last night was just an amazing player and person to be able to accomplish something so spectacular as becoming the all-time greatest rebounder in the history of our league. When I think back through my time in the league, how special this league has had, had some players that just were, whether it's Yolanda Griffith, I remember, and Rebecca Brunson had a chance to play with Yolanda in her early years. Rebecca was referred to as Baby Yo. And so, goodness gracious, to think that Yolanda Griffith, Tamika Catchings, Taj McWilliams Franklin, who was a tremendous rebounder, that Rebecca is the greatest of all time. What a joy for me to be able to, have that player on our team and be able to celebrate with her in that way. It was just really, really cool.
It was a great night last night at Target Center. Let's talk more about Rebecca after I thank our sponsors, Freehouse, 701 North Washington Avenue, great craft beer and everything restaurant, breakfast to beer they call it. They have the great patio, the great bar area, the great dining area. Our next live show at the Freehouse is July 17th at 6 o'clock. We had a huge crowd last time. Looking forward to seeing all those people and more this time. Also thank to one of our newer sponsors, Shelly Bean. She writes the Shelly Bean, the Sports Queen, youth sports books, providing a role model for young female athletes. They're beautifully done books. Shelly's a really cool person. The books include instructional and safety tips. We'll tell you more about them in a minute. Neil Olstad, I met him last night. He does the Lynx Dynasty Podcast. First episode is about Alexis Jones. You can listen by going to Canis Hoopus, or you can go to just find Lynx Dynasty on iTunes, your favorite podcast app. Tell you more about that in a little bit. And, of course, Lynhall, which is sponsoring the Wisdom Series featuring change makers in the community. Their next event is July 19th with Lynn Casey, local CEO. Tickets are $25. With proceeds going to the Young Women's Initiative. The Women's Foundation, go to lynhall.com for ticket information. Of course, we'll tell you more about our sponsors later. So Rebecca, she's kind of thought of, not necessarily in your organization, but by the casual fan, she's thought of as maybe the least prominent of your starters. And yet she owns the record for most championship rings. Now she owns the record for most rebounds. She's been all defense many times, all-star many times. It was a cool moment to see her actually be in the spotlight by herself briefly last night.
No, you're exactly right. For whatever reason, that's kind of what we do in the sports world, or really just in society in general. It's it's more of the the points. I guess maybe it's more appeal to people to think about scoring, and they think that's what wins games. And just so appreciative that someone like Rebecca Brunson has embraced throughout her career the value of rebounding, and it leads to so many wins for this franchise. That's for sure. Her defense and her rebounding at both ends, both defensively and offensively. And, it's just, it was really, really cool. I know our fans appreciate the heck out of her. She's been known as the machine for a long, long time to our fan base, and was thrilled that she was in pursuit of so many rebounds to accomplish the goal in front of our fans. I know she really wanted that, and she deserved every bit of shine that she got last night.
And as you've talked about, you tried to scale back her minutes earlier in the season, and it didn't go real well.
No, it did not. It wasn't the best in the best interest of our team. I think it was, something that we said, we can, after we tried it for a little bit, I wasn't very good at it. I went the other way with it. I played her too few a minute. And I just didn't operate well having that on my mind. And so then we regrouped, we met again and just said, hey, that's not working. How about this? How about you just tell me when you have a problem? Let's let, if the trainers, obviously they get paid to think about the big picture. But ultimately, Rebecca said, hey, I will let you know, if this heads towards a problem. And I just have to trust her. And, obviously having her, long term, for this season is of paramount importance. Obviously winning every game we play is important, but at the same time, it's I don't want it to be at the expense of, we don't have her for the playoffs. I just don't want to be in that situation. So we both just decided that, together we could, we could manage that, and we might have times and we're going to be able to get her off the floor more when I have to, and we just have to be smart about it. But she's such a competitor. She never wants to come out, literally, never wants to come out of the game.
Again, our primary sponsor is Freehouse in the North Loop. Our next show, July 17th, 6 p.m. From breakfast to beer, they serve some breakfast items all day. We love the Roto-Bird caramelized Thai pork, their grilled salmon, their SoCal shrimp tacos. They make kale taste good. Check out freehousempls.com for their full menu and hours. They have a great happy hour as well. And, of course, they make their own beer, including some experimental beers that we have tried. Also have cocktails, everything else. Again, Freehouse, 701 North Washington Avenue. I was wondering, Cheryl, what's the best career honor that a WNBA player can receive?
The best career honor.
In baseball, it's the Hall of Fame. What is it in the WNBA? What's the ultimate?
Well, it would be the same. There's two Hall of Fames. There's Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in Knoxville, and then there's the Naismith Hall of Fame. And so I think, as Katie Smith went into the Hall of Fame, I think that would be, the kind of the pinnacle. It's hard to do. Being a Hall of Famer is obviously it's not for everybody, right? It's that's why it's such an honor because not everybody gets there. And so I think that would be the pinnacle. And we certainly have future Hall of Famers on our team. But that would be it. I think, another big honor was top 20 at 20 in the history of our league. At the 20-year mark of our league, they honored what they believed to be the top 20 players. I think that was another kind of historic, thing to be a part of. But yeah, the Hall of Fame is absolutely the pinnacle of it.
Yeah, I didn't know which one was kind of more, had more prestige attached to it. And for some reason, your group doesn't talk about those things. You hear it in other sports all the time, people putting it out there, I want to be a Hall of Famer. And you just don't hear that in the WNBA that often, even though you might have five Hall of Famers on your roster.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I think it's probably because I think there's, the separation. Maybe it's not the norm in terms of the conversation around women's sports, because there's usually a separation of a female athlete and a male athlete. And it wasn't until, if you go back and look at historically, only men made the Hall of Fame. And so obviously through I don't have in the last 10 many years, whatever, women started to be noticed as well. So it's like everything else with women. It's just a matter of, us doing this longer and it becoming the norm and being included. And I think we're in a good place with that. I think Naismith does a great job including both men and women. And there's not a distinction of a men's Hall of Fame or a women's Hall of Fame. Or probably more appropriately, a Hall of Fame, and then a separate one called a Women's Hall of Fame.
Right.
It is all one, which is tremendous for our sport.
Absolutely. Shelly Bean, the sports queen, plays basketball. Shelly Bean, the sports queen, skates at the hockey rink, scores a soccer goal, plays a game of catch. Shelly Bean, the sports queen, and the brave swim. Shelly Boyan Breen has written a series of books about her protagonist, Shelly Bean. Girls' participation in sports has grown to an all-time high, but the books they read and the dolls they play with still represent princesses. Shelly Bean, the sports queen, is a leader of a new generation where being a jock is acceptable for girls and encouraged. It might take falling down, getting hurt, and getting back up. Shelly Bean is determined to learn new sports and be great. This is highly recommended for parents and educators. Again, they have instructional tips and safety tips for each sport. Shelly, who I've been talking to a lot lately, also has done a TEDx talk. You can find that on YouTube. You can also find her 30 Days of Play, Episode 1 on biking on YouTube. Shelly, BOYUM-BREEN. Shelly, and you hear the background noise. Cheryl is about to board a flight go down to Chicago, so that's why we're kind of rushing the show. We want to get this in before she has to get on the plane. Tell me about, obviously you had an honor last night. The night was mostly about Rebecca Brunson. You also won a big game and played pretty well too. Tell me about the night.
We did. That was an important game for us. I loved how we responded after not playing as well as we'd hoped at home against an Indiana team that has struggled this season. And so, obviously, LA coming to town, it's always a big game. And so we had to kind of turn it around quickly, mentally and physically. And I didn't think we had the mental and physical toughness necessary to win a game against any team in the league. And so for us to turn around so quickly and play LA, it was a must win for us to kind of keep our season series alive with LA. They had won 2 games. We played this team 4 times. So in order for us to compete, in a tiebreak situation, we had to have this W. And we have to now go to LA and get that W to get a tie for the head-to-head when we come to the tiebreak situation. So, it's obviously a team that's really good. We had to play well. A game that Maya struggled again. Sylvia Fowles carried us, which is what you hope for. As you saw on Tuesday night, when both of those players struggle, it's hard for us. And then Rebecca Brunson's game, it wasn't just the rebounding, but, she knocked down some big shots when Syl was double and triple teamed and was left open, and Syl played great, career high 7 assists. So she was phenomenal, and, our team picked up a big W.
Let's get our mentions of our other sponsors in here. Then we're just going to kind of go free form until Cheryl actually has to get on the plane. Neil Olstad, OLSTAD, does the Lynx Dynasty Podcast. It's a podcast about Minnesota's most successful sports franchise, stories about the people, themes, and philosophies that make the team special. Last season, he did episodes on the relocation to St. Paul, the media coverage of the WNBA, and Jim Peterson. This year, the first episode is on Alexis Jones' Journey of a Young Player. It's available now. Neil is going to do episodes all summer. Subscribe at Apple Podcasts, your favorite podcast app. Search for Lynx Dynasty or go to canishoopus.com and find out there. And also, you can listen to this show as well as the Lynx Dynasty Podcast. They kind of complement each other. Also, thanks to Lynhall, 2640 Lindale Avenue South, Minneapolis. Lynhall's incredible restaurant, event space, kitchen, TV studio, and more, providing wholesome food, teaching classes, making delicious drinks. No matter what you're hungry or thirsty for, they'll have you covered. And of course, we've been highlighting the Wisdom Series. They've had Shel Tafoya on. July 19th, they'll have Lynn Casey, local CEO. Tickets are $25. Proceeds benefiting the Young Women's Initiative of the Women's Foundation. Visit thelynhall.com for ticket information. We appreciate all of our sponsors. If you'd like to sponsor the program, email me, jsouhan47@gmail.com. All right, until you have to get on the plane, I have to ask, that was an interesting sequence that led to your ejection. I couldn't really see what was going on. Do you care to elaborate?
Yeah, unfortunate situation. I told the team following the game, I apologized, to our team, because that's just something that can't happen. I have to, be able to stay on the floor and coach our team. And it's not certainly something that I planned for. It was indicated by the official that I'm not permitted to aggressively ask for a timeout. That's what I was doing. I was asking for a timeout. That was my first technical. And then, honest to goodness, I have the same vantage point as you, that it was a real surprise to me to learn that there was a second technical with no explanation. I'm unclear on that. I'm still waiting to hear back from the league as to what the post-game report indicated. So at the end of the day, like I said, it cost us 2 points, and we just can't focus on officiating. It is very, very difficult to see the discrepancy that unfortunately our player, Sylvia Fowles, the way that she's officiating.